This 50-meter wingspan gliding over the ocean represents one of the most distinct silhouettes in aviation history. By removing the vertical tail and traditional fuselage, the B-2 Spirit appears more like a craft from a science fiction film than a 20th century bomber. Yet on a radar screen, this massive machine appears no larger than a small bird. To understand why the U.S. military committed to this design, we have to look at the shifting reality of the Cold War. For decades, the strategy for penetrating enemy airspace was simple: build bombers that could fly faster than anything the Soviets could put in the air. That doctrine failed as Soviet radar technology evolved faster than American jet engines. High-speed bombers like the B-58 or the XB-70 were still visible on radar from hundreds of miles away, giving surface-to-air missiles plenty of time to track and intercept them. Survival no longer depended on the engines. If an aircraft was going to reach its target, it had to stop reflecting radar signals entirely. The Advanced Technology Bomber program found its solution in a concept championed decades earlier. As seen here, Jack Northrop spent his career trying to prove a pure flying wing was the most efficient shape for long-range flight. The stealth advantage of this shape is purely geometric. By eliminating the tail and vertical stabilizers, you remove the flat surfaces that act like mirrors, reflecting radar pulses directly back to the enemy's receiver. But the flying wing was shelved for years because it is naturally unstable. Without a tail to provide balance, the aircraft is prone to tumbling, making it impossible for a pilot to keep it steady with manual controls. The solution arrived in the late 20th century with the maturation of digital flight controls. High-speed computers could now process thousands of micro-adjustments every second, automatically twitching the control surfaces to keep the unstable wing level. This meant the B-2's stealth capabilities rested on a 40-year-old dream, realized only when hardware performance finally caught up to the design's complexity. Engineers originally optimized the B-2 for high-altitude flight. It was meant to be a long-range glider operating in the thin, calm air of the stratosphere, where its stealth and fuel efficiency were at their peak. However, midway through development, the Air Force changed the mission requirements. They demanded the bomber also be capable of low-level terrain masking, where it would fly just a few hundred feet off the ground to hide behind mountains. This presented a massive structural crisis. At low altitudes, the air is thick and turbulent. Pushing a wide, thin wing through that dense atmosphere creates immense twisting forces that threaten to tear the airframe apart. To survive those stresses, engineers had to redesign the internal structure, adding heavy titanium and composite reinforcements. These changes added billions to the budget and significantly increased the aircraft's final weight. This shift turned a specialized high-altitude glider into one of the most complex and expensive engineering compromises in military history. This diagram shows how traditional aircraft reflect radar directly back to the source. The B-2's curves scatter those waves in random directions. Furthermore, its specialized radar-absorbent skin acts like a sponge, converting incoming electromagnetic energy into harmless heat that dissipates across the airframe. But heat is a signature. Standard jet engines produce massive thermal plumes that attract heat-seeking missiles. The B-2 hides this by burying engines inside the wing. It mixes cold intake air with hot exhaust, cooling the gases significantly before they exit the top vents. Even the sound is managed by shielding the engine fans deep within the body. The B-2 operates with a muffled acoustic profile, often passing overhead before anyone on the ground realizes it's there. Combined, these systems make the B-2 a multi-sensory black hole, systematically stripping away the radar, thermal, and acoustic markers that define a normal aircraft. The very features that make the B-2 so effective also make it incredibly delicate. The radar-absorbent coating is highly reactive to environmental factors like high humidity, rain, or the salt air found near coastal bases. This creates a dangerous vulnerability. A single scratch or a small patch of peeling coating can cause the aircraft's radar cross-section to spike, turning a stealth mission into a high-risk gamble. Maintaining this sensitivity requires a massive logistics chain. As seen with these technicians, for every flight hour, the B-2 requires over 50 hours of maintenance to ensure its outer skin remains intact. The U.S. built an aircraft that can bypass an entire nation's defense network, only to find that it requires a climate-controlled laboratory to survive the afternoon on a runway. Just as the B-2 reached operational status, the Soviet Union collapsed. Suddenly, the primary threat the aircraft was designed to counter, the dense Soviet integrated air defense system, ceased to exist. At this rollout ceremony, the B-2 represented a pinnacle of technology, but it entered a world with a shrinking defense budget. Congress ultimately slashed the production order from 132 planes down to just 21. This created a mathematical nightmare. Because the multi-billion-dollar development costs were now spread across only 21 jets, the price of a single B-2 skyrocketed to over $2 billion, making it the most expensive aircraft ever built. The lessons of that financial strain are now being applied to the B-21 Raider. This newer platform, shown here, aims to replicate the B-2's invisibility while using modular designs that are significantly cheaper and easier to maintain. The B-2 Spirit proved that humans could effectively conquer the physics of stealth, but it also defined the absolute limit of how much a nation is willing to pay for the